So for the first time in a long while, and this is hard for me to admit, but I have been having trouble 36 starring the Abyss with 4 stars only. 4.7's Abyss is arguably the most difficult Abyss floor 12 that we have ever had since the inception of Genshin Impact. Now, is this just a random one-off really difficult Abyss? Hoyo just overcooked, they got lucky making, the enemy so annoying? Or is this a sign of something deeper? So let me give you a super quick rundown on why and how this specific floor 12 is so difficult. So the first thing is elemental restrictions, which is nothing new to Genshin Impact's floor 12 on how they raise the difficulty, but floor 1 with the double Pyro Abyss mages into the double Pyro Abyss Lectors is an absolute pain. You need a ton of Hydro. The second best element of breaking the shield is Electro, but you are not gonna make it unless you're just like giga whaled out with Electro characters. You need Hydro, and you might even need 2 of them. So the Pyro Hell floor is on side 2 of Chamber 12, but on side 1 in the final room, you have Simon, the flying electric Sumerian Dorito guy. Look, if you have like crazy, once again, decked out, whaled out characters, you might be able to just power through him, but for most normal people, you need to bring Electro because he goes invisible, your characters won't even target him even if you do know where he is, and it's just really hard to hit him with your moves. He wastes a ton of time, and the Abyss is all about time. There are a few other things in this Abyss that are elementally restrictive, like the Consecrated Beast, the Scorpion has big Electro res, the Pyro Bird has Pyro res, but it's not like anything you can't manage through, so I don't want to call it a complete restriction, but it is another thing that you got to keep in the back of your mind when you are building your teams, because you might not reach the DPS check if you're relying on those specific elements. But by far and away, the reason why this Abyss is so difficult, it's not elemental restrictions, it is multiple waves of enemies. Floor 1, side 1 has 4 waves of enemies. Floor 1, side 2 has 3 waves of enemies. Then floor 2, side 2 has 4 waves of enemies again, and floor 3, side 2 has 3 waves of enemies. This has been Genshin Impact's artificial way of raising the difficulty of the Abyss for probably the last like a year, maybe even year and a half now. So while it's not directly affecting the combat that you're doing, like making the enemies stronger or anything like that, it is once again affecting the most important aspect of the Abyss, time. Multiple waves of enemies are a massive time constraint in a few different ways you may not have even thought about. Okay, there are certain characters that have moves like Nahida that mark enemies, super strong effect, right? But once those enemies die, the new enemies that spawn, they don't have Nahida's mark on them anymore. Maybe it's still on cooldown. Maybe you don't want to switch to Nahida right now because you're on like Cyno or something. But I think the biggest one that these multiple waves affect a lot are circle impact characters. Okay, I'm talking Bennett. I'm talking Rosaria. I love me my reverse melt Rosaria. Okay, there's a lot more circle impact characters in this game, but you drop your burst on the first wave of enemies, knock them out, but then the new wave of enemies spawns across the map. So you waste all that time of your burst and you got to build up your energy, all that kind of stuff again, which is obviously not a problem against enemies that sit around the same place the whole time, like the PMA, like the big Geo Bishop guy. Lots of big enemies just sit in the same place. And another thing about multiple waves is maybe all these enemies that you have to face, maybe they're not the bulkiest enemies ever, but when you pool all of their HP together, it reaches extremely high numbers. When you look at floor 2, side 2 of this Chamber 12 that we're dealing with right now, every enemy combined has over 5.8 million total HP. To put that into perspective, Simon on side 3 has 2.2 million HP. So this Abyss is a perfect combination of elemental restrictions and waves, resulting in a very high DPS check. So whatevs, end of the day, this Abyss is a little bit harder. I don't think this Abyss is going to pose a challenge for any, serious late game players. But I have been hearing a lot more players in general are struggling with this Abyss. And hell, I am struggling right now to clear this Abyss with 4-star characters and 4-star weapons only, okay? And this isn't to flex. The 4-star character runs that I do are my favorite thing to do. They are extremely fun, and they are the way that I truly feel challenged playing Genshin Impact. It's like a self-imposed challenge run, and I love doing it every single time. I love using more unique characters and showcasing that you don't need 5 stars in general. And then showcasing, you know, just a lot of cool 4 stars, right? HoYoverse, the GOAT, I've 36 starred the Abyss with Sayu and Dory just like a month ago, right? So I love it. I love the 4-star runs, but I do think it is a great benchmark for me to be able to judge just how difficult the Abyss truly is right now. But I'm gonna clear the Abyss with my 4 stars only, and I'm gonna do it live on stream this week. Okay, so if you've never came by to the stream, now is the best time, baby. It's gonna be fire. You gotta see the run. I'll see you guys there. So that begs the question, is this truly just a random one-off, really difficult Abyss? Or does it mean something deeper? Is this a sign of things to come for Genshin? Now, I have 2 big reasons why I think they chose to make this Abyss so difficult. Let's start with the first one, the less divisive one. So I like to call this little theory the end of version difficulty spike. We are in patch 4.7 right now. And yes, we did just have the Dainslet quest, but let's be honest, it took like 45 minutes to clear, and all the Archon quests of Fontaine are over. Okay, so just think, lots of the more casual, laid-back Genshin players probably just aren't playing right now. They're not giving Genshin a bunch of their time, right? So who are the players that are playing Genshin every single day, even through these slower patches? It's the hardcore players. So my theory is that at the end of versions, Hoyo likes to throw us serious players a bone and give us an actually hardcore, difficult Abyss. And we've seen this before. Okay, the last Abyss, I think it was either 3.7 or 3.8, was one of the hardest Abysses we ever had. And once again, it lines up with right before a big update when not that many people are playing. So yes, that's just my little theory, even though I do think it's true. Okay, let's get into the big reason, the meat and potatoes reason as to why this Abyss is so hard. And to me, the answer is competition. Wuthering Waves. Whether you want to admit it or not, Wuthering Waves is doing extremely well. Okay, the game has been out less than a month, and I'm pretty sure they are approaching $100 million total sales. And the game is doing extremely well on YouTube analytically, and Twitch maintaining more viewers than Genshin most of the time. So maybe you don't see Wuthering Waves as a threat, but Hoyo sure does. So when you compare Genshin Impact versus Wuthering Waves, what is the main appeal for someone to play Wuthering Waves instead of Genshin? It's very obvious. It is the combat. The combat is way more precise, tactile, difficult. Timing is more important. Dodging, parrying. The easiest way to say it is a more difficult combat experience. And I think Genshin used to think that players didn't want this really difficult combat. Okay, look, let's bring up the meme interview again from a while ago where they interviewed the Genshin Impact developers and they were like, yo, can we get more difficult Abyss late game content? And HoYoverse straight up said, nah, we're not gonna do that because we don't want to cause the player base anxiety, right? So Genshin would only say that if they truly thought that having more difficult content in the game was bad for them. And now Wuthering Waves has completely proven that players do want a more difficult experience in these gacha, action, RPG, open world games. And Genshin is gonna follow the money. Or so they might, but this may just be the turning point for HoYoverse, where they amp it up a notch and give players a more difficult Abyss, whether that is, you know, just making the floors way more difficult enemies, maybe adding floor 13 in the future. Either way, as long as there's something to challenge the free-to-play players, the occasional spenders, the light spenders, okay? Because we all know whales aren't gonna have a challenge, all right? You bought your way out of the problems, okay? You know, if the Abyss becomes more difficult for the average Genshin player, I think it will have a positive impact on Genshin as a whole. So is this the end of easy Abysses? We've been getting those free primos every 2 weeks for too long. If Hoyo decides to do what Hoyo does, the answer is no. The Abyss will just slowly go back to, you know, being difficult for newer players or more casual players, but not really challenging the late game players and the more hardcore players. But if this is a turning point for Genshin, it may just be the end of easy Abyss cycles as we know it. And no matter what, snow, rain, easy, hard, I will be there to make some content on it and clap that shit. All right, so come through to the stream. All right, that is the #1 place to see your boy doing Abyss stuff, having a good time, hanging out with the viewers. I love talking to you guys, you know, more intimately over there. So, hey, come check out the Twitch. Thank you guys for watching the YouTube. All of you guys who like, who subscribe, you guys drop such nice comments. Thank you guys. I appreciate the YouTube frogs oh so very much. And who else do I appreciate? The patrons. All right, let's give it up to Zick. Let's give it up to Bob. Let's give it up to Melon, Junon, Wolf. I appreciate you guys. Everybody else on Patreon. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up. Thank you guys so much, man, for supporting the content. I always say it, but it means a lot to me. I'll see you in the next video. Peace, everybody.